Yeah. So yeah, welcome to this Citizen Science Showcase event. My name is Amelia. I'm from the Natural History Consortium, who've organised this showcase. The Citizen Science Showcase is a programme of events taking place this week, bringing together hundreds of people online and at various sites across the region to help connect hundreds of people with meaningful projects that help us better understand the natural world through making or investigating scientific records. The showcase is part of the Citizen Science Local Pilot, an initiative working to support improvements to citizen science across Somerset, Wiltshire, Dorset, and the west of England. And it's supported by Natural England and funded by the government's Natural Capital and Ecosystem Assessment Programme. This meeting is being recorded, so you can watch it back if you miss any bits, and you can share it with your friends as well afterwards. We will be having a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will be able to read them out to Hen. Yeah, I hope you enjoy, and over to you, Hen.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Henrietta Pringle. I'm the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme Coordinator. So it's great to be talking to you tonight. I'm just going to start with sharing my screen. Let me just. I'm Henrietta, as I say. I work for the People's Trust for Endangered Species and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. I'm funded by both organisations, and I'm going to talk to you today about the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme. So this is a brand new programme. It's a pilot programme monitoring scheme, and we're running for 3 years. So we're actually about to go into our final year. It runs. So this will be our final survey season. The survey season being April to October. So this will be our final survey season, and the idea is that it's a 3-year pilot, which will then test the monitoring programme concept. It will show, hopefully, that it works, and then we will roll it out, subject to funding, to become a national annual monitoring scheme. So you'll see a load of logos at the bottom. This is all the team involved, so it's a big collaborative process. So we have obviously BHPS and PTES who are running it and part funding it, and it's also part funded by Natural England. We've got Nottingham Trent University, ZSL at London Zoo, and also London Hogwatch, who run a citizen science hedgehog camera trap survey in London. And then we've also got Durham University and MammalWeb, who are key partners as well. So just to give you a bit of background about hedgehogs. So we're talking here about the West European hedgehog. That's the species that's native to Britain. And it's one of about 17 hedgehog species worldwide. I say about because there is a bit of debate, depending on who you talk to, because taxonomy, which is how we group species, it depends slightly on how you define these species groupings. So it's about 17 species across the world, and in the fossil record there are other species of hedgehog as well. So when we talk about hedgehogs, it's not just one. They are our only spiny mammal. They've got spines all over the body apart from the tummy. And they've got about 5,000 to 7,000 spines, and these spines are made of keratin, so the same stuff as your hair and nails. They have pretty poor eyesight. They rely on smell and hearing. So I don't know if any of you are lucky enough to have seen hedgehogs, to have hedgehogs in your gardens, but quite often you can hear them before you see them because they're quite loud. They really do snuffle about, and that's them using that sense of smell. And they're looking for invertebrates. They eat pretty much anything, but they're mainly invertebrates. So caterpillars, beetles, worms, caterpillars, insects, but they'll also eat kind of fallen fruit, carrion, and of course supplementary food that we put out for them. And they are nocturnal, so only out at night. So I'll just briefly take you through kind of where our hedgehogs are in the year. So you'll find them in winter, they'll be hibernating. They are one of our only mammals to hibernate, along with dormice and bats. It can vary, so they tend to hibernate from sort of late October, November, right through to March, but it does depend a bit on the temperatures. They can break their hibernation, they can come out of hibernation if it's a bit milder and if they're particularly hungry. But generally in the winter, they'll be tucked up somewhere warm, quite wisely. Springtime is mating season. So generally hedgehogs are solitary individuals, but if you see them with other individuals, it's either kind of an adult and young, or it's, you know, courting pair. And of course this can also be quite a noisy affair as well, the mating of hedgehogs. Then in the summertime we get the hoglets appear. Yeah, little families of hogs. And then in the autumn, you'll find adults gathering material for hibernation. So just to kind of quickly summarize what's going on with our hedgehogs. So sadly, we know that they are declining. We know that they are classified as vulnerable to extinction in the UK. And actually within Europe, they've been recently, now I never know which way around this is, upgraded from least concern, so actually doing okay, to near threatened. So they've gone up a kind of threat category across Europe. So you know, things aren't looking great for hedgehogs. There are numerous threats to hedgehogs. My colleagues have been working on the National Hedgehog Conservation Strategy, which has been working to kind of pull together all these threats and come up with kind of priority research areas and things like that. And the main sort of threats we have are agricultural intensification. So that's where, you know, over decades and centuries, we've been, you know, intensifying our agricultural practices. We've ripped out hedgerows. We've lost about 50% of our hedgerows since the Second World War. We've got large monoculture fields. We're increasing our pesticide and insecticide use. And basically anything, if you decrease the amount of food or habitat available for a species, that's going to impact on that species. So once we see, you know, invertebrates and habitat declining, we'll see hedgehogs declining, and that's sadly what's happened. So obviously linked to that is habitat loss. So as I say, hedgerows are a biggie, as the name suggests. Hedgehogs like hedges, but also of course there's increased development in urban areas. Gardens are a big, you know, a big stronghold for hedgehogs, and we are seeing kind of increasing urbanization, which you know, increasing development, which could be a growing threat to hedgehogs. Related to that is habitat fragmentation. So we might have really nice pockets of habitat, but if they're isolated, that's also not a great thing for wildlife in general. We need those habitats to be linked up so that, you know, if you have isolated populations, if you know, individuals can't get to other places, it means they interbreed with each other. So there's, you know, there's a risk to their genetics, and that brings diseases and things. If there is, you know, a disease or any kind of disaster like flood or something like that, they don't have anywhere to escape to, and they can't find other mates and that sort of thing. So we need connected habitats. And that's not just for hedgehogs, that's in general for thriving biodiversity. One of the other kind of key threats is roadkill. Now, we don't have a good idea of the kind of the impact of roadkill on hedgehog numbers. Kind of slightly counterintuitively, we used to look at roadkill and see that there were lots of hedgehogs killed on roads, so we knew that that meant there were quite a few hedgehogs around, and now you see far fewer dead hedgehogs on roads, which is actually a bad sign, because it means we've got fewer hedgehogs around. But there's research going on into what the impacts of roadkill are on hedgehogs at the population level. The next one there is predation. So here I'll talk about badgers, just a brief word on badgers. So badgers do predate hedgehogs. They're their only predator that can kind of get into a hedgehog. They are, this is a natural predator-prey relationship. They've coexisted for thousands of years together. And, you know, it may be the case that badgers or hedgehogs may avoid areas where badgers are, but we don't think it's certainly not a driving factor of hedgehog declines. As I say, they have coexisted for millennia. And also we find where there's plenty of food and habitat available, badgers and hedgehogs can coexist. And also we still find hedgehogs declining in areas where there aren't any badgers. So badgers aren't the story there. The final kind of big threat is garden hazards. So things like strimming and lawnmower accidents. Also things like bonfires. So a bonfire is a lovely, really attractive log pile to hedgehogs. It thinks, brilliant, there's a nice refugia for me. And so it'll go and kind of snuffle into a bonfire. And obviously that can be bad news. So if you are building a bonfire, I recommend that you do it on the day that you are having the bonfire, and also that you do check it before you light it. So that all means that we are seeing a big long decline in hedgehog numbers. This has been going on for decades. We think there is a difference though between rural and urban populations. So in the countryside, we think they've declined by around 30 to 75% since 2000. So that's obviously quite a big drop in numbers there. The latest State of Britain's hedgehog report shows that actually in urban areas, hedgehog populations might be stabilising. That's very early indications, so we have to take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, signs are positive in urban areas, and that may well be because of campaigns like Hedgehog Street, where people are encouraged to put hedgehog highways in their fences, connect up their gardens, possibly with supplementary feeding and all of that. And we do know that gardens are a real stronghold for hedgehogs. So gardens are now very important for hedgehogs. So yeah, that there are signs that our kind of town hedgehogs are doing better, or certainly than town hedgehogs are doing better than countryside hedgehogs anyway. So the reason for the monitoring programme is, I've mentioned that we've got these declines. However, the data that those are based on, it's quite limited. So if I can point you to this map on the right here, this is the big hedgehog map. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but again, this is run by my colleagues at Hedgehog Street, which is a campaign from PTES and BHPS. And it's a sort of engagement campaign. It gives lots of advice if you're looking for to build a hedgehog community, wildlife groups, and want to help your hedgehogs. I would urge you to look at Hedgehog Street. They have lots of great resources, but they also have this big hedgehog map, which is where you can go online and you can log whether you've seen a hedgehog. And just as a general aside point, and you'll probably hear this quite a lot during the course of this week of showcase events, recording your wildlife, submitting your records of wildlife sightings is really important. Even if you see a hedgehog, if you see a stag beetle, if you see hares, anything like that, really anything, do submit them to things like either specific monitoring schemes or iRecord, iNaturalist, and they're really useful records for planning, conservation, all that sort of thing. Anyway, that was just a sort of aside. But back to the big hedgehog map, you'll see here that so these are records of that members of the public have sent in of hedgehogs. So you can see there that there's pretty good coverage there of hedgehogs. So that tells us where hedgehogs are. What it doesn't tell us is where hedgehogs aren't, because those grey areas where we haven't got points, that doesn't necessarily mean that hedgehogs are absent. It just means we don't have hedgehogs records there. So it could be that there aren't any hedgehogs. It could be that there aren't any people. So some of those areas are more rural, remote areas. Or it could be that people just aren't looking for hedgehogs or don't know to submit their records. So we can't use that as a reliable source of absence records, which are really as important as presence records. The other thing to say is that these are distributions, these are presences, and actually the sort of gold standard for monitoring is around abundances, so numbers of individuals. And that's really important because if we just know, a species is present and then it's not, we don't have any kind of warning there. Whereas if we know numbers, we can say, okay, we've got 50 hedgehogs in this area in year 1, we've got 30 in year 5, we've got 1 in year 10. That gives us that warning sign that actually hedgehogs are declining and they are in trouble. So we need to kind of put in conservation measures. Whereas if it were just presence we were looking at, you'd have hedgehogs present, hedgehogs absent, and you wouldn't be able to kind of mitigate for that. So abundances are really important. They're also in all sorts of biodiversity targets and government targets that we need to know about abundances as our kind of key biodiversity indicators. Again, I talked about hedgehogs declining. So we obviously do have a sense of numbers, but that's from either very small scale, quite intense surveys, which give us really good data, but from a small area, so we can't then extrapolate that up to the rest of the country, or it's based on lots of different surveys, and then it's quite difficult to compare between them. So when I said earlier we've got 30 to 75% loss, that's a big confidence interval. That's a big range that we've got there. So we need to be more sure of what that value is to be able to help hedgehogs. So all that points to a need for a consistent monitoring method that we can use across habitat types. So what we need is a programme like the NHMP, the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme. And what's crucial is a standardised effort. So that's where in a survey, you've got either people surveying for the same amount of time, or in this case, we're using trail cameras. So it's cameras out for the same amount of time. And what that means is that we can then, with the results, we can say that any variation in the results is due to actual variation in the numbers of hedgehogs, and not just because people have looked for them for a different amount of time. So this will be standardized, and the methods are repeatable. So we can do the same thing across lots of different sites and across lots of different years. And that's crucial because that'll give us trends over time, trends across habitat and land use, and also it means we can kind of really monitor how the species is doing. And finally, we're collecting lots of data on other species as well. The cameras, as you'll see, are out for 30 days, and they are triggered by anything that goes in front of them. So we've got lots of images of lots of other species. Not just hedgehogs, but there are lots of mammals that are equally hard to monitor because they're nocturnal, so not when people are traditionally out monitoring them. So all this means that hopefully the NHMP, the results will inform policy, conservation strategies. We'll be able to identify drivers of change, those threats to hedgehogs. We'll be able to identify hedgehog hotspots and hopefully then replicate those across the country. We'll also be able to identify at-risk populations. And crucially, that all means that we'll be able to target conservation actions to where they're needed most. And a brief note about the National Hedgehog Conservation Strategy, which I mentioned earlier. This is now available on the PTES website, and it's basically a sort of a manual that sums up, what's going on with our hedgehogs. And the next stage will then be to kind of create strategies as to how we help them. And one of the key things within the hedgehog conservation strategy that was identified was a need to know actually what do healthy hedgehog habitats look like. And that's hopefully where the NHMP will really help. So going on to the actual nitty-gritty of the survey, we operate it on a volunteer hub system. So we have these regional hubs all around the country. And these are run by local organisations. So people like wildlife trusts, local record centres, universities, mammal groups, yeah, you name it. We've got lots of different organisations involved. Some of these hubs are organised by one particular group, but a lot of the time it's several groups coming together to monitor a particular region. Within each region, each hub is responsible for monitoring up to 5 sites. So that includes recruiting volunteers to help deploy and collect the cameras, arranging landowner permissions for the cameras to be on the land, and that includes garden owners as well. And then finally, uploading all the images to MammalWeb, which I'll talk about in a minute. So each hub has up to 5 sites, and then at each site, which is 1 kilometre square in area, we put out 30 cameras, which are left out for a minimum of 30 days and nights. After which time the cameras are collected and then they're moved on to the next site in that hub's remit. So each hub has 1 set of 30 cameras, which is hopefully a kind of in use continuously. So we're here to talk about Wessex. So we have a few sites in the Wessex region. So these are run by Wiltshire and Swindon Biological Record Centre and also the Dorset Wildlife Trust. So as I say, we have 30 cameras put out across a site, and we leave them out for 30 days. So this is one of my colleagues just putting out one of the cameras. And what happens is we would go to one of the sites, the first site within a hub's remit, and we would go out and we train up the volunteers. We do an in-person session so that then that hub they're then self-sufficient to then be able to train up future volunteers and monitor the next sites in their remit without us. We then obviously provide resources, videos, guides, etc., and calls and other things for to offer support and guidance. So bear with me for the next couple of slides, but just a very brief sort of description of this particular method that we're using. It's a camera trap survey, so it's trail cameras, as I say. And what sets it apart from other previous trail camera surveys is that we can use it to produce density estimates for species that we can't individually recognise. So camera trapping is great because you can. It's been traditionally used to confirm presence. So you can put cameras out and you can say, oh yes, I've got hedgehogs on my site. But it can't tell you much more than that traditionally, because we can't individually recognise hedgehogs. If you had something like tigers where you could identify the individual stripe pattern, then you can say, okay, that's tiger A, B, C. So there's at least 3 tigers, or of course, if they're all on camera at the same time. But as I say, hedgehogs are usually solitary, so that won't really work. So this method, it relies on a certain calibration method, which my colleague Grace is showing there in the picture, where we have to extract key parameters from the images. And what it means is we can basically assign a probability. So we can say, okay, we've seen across the 30 cameras, across the 30 nights, we've seen hedgehogs 50 times. What's the likelihood that that represents 50 hedgehogs? So based on the speed that the animal's moving, its activity rate, the detection zone of the camera, and other things, the model basically says, okay, that's therefore 20 hedgehogs or something like that. Hopefully you're still with me. So the way we do that, we need to know how fast the animal is moving, for one. So what we need to do is create a map of the field of view so that we can relate the animal to this 3D map. So we do this by taking a series of images with the stripy pole. So we just walk across, when we set up the cameras, we walk across the field of view with this pole. And then at a later, when we come to analyse them, we look at these pole images. And then if we then see a hedgehog, we can say, okay, it's where it is in relation to that pole, and then we can work out the speed that the animal moves through the images. So once we've deployed the cameras and we've collected them all in, we then, all the hubs then upload their images to MammalWeb, which is a citizen science camera trap platform. So we have about, let's see, 8 million images on MammalWeb, which are grouped into sequences. So sequences are where we've got images that are triggered in quick succession by one animal. That is then a sequence. So we've got about 1.5 million sequences, but that represents 8 million images. So they're all on MammalWeb, which is this camera trapping platform. And the idea is, there's other similar things like Zooniverse, which you may have heard of. And the idea is that lots of different projects can upload their camera trap images, and then members of the public then can view the images, and they help process the data. By which I mean, I've just mentioned we have 8 million images. We need to know which of those images have hedgehogs in them. So this is where you come in, please. We ask members of the public, all of you, to go onto MammalWeb, and then you can look at all the images or the sequences, so slightly less daunting, and you can tell us which sequences have hedgehogs. But we do also want to know about the other sequences as well. So basically, you tell us what species are in which images. So this web page is www.mammalweb.org, and this shows you all the projects that are on there. This is just a screenshot, so there are lots of projects on there. Obviously, we'd love you to classify images from the NHMP. So you can click on NHMP, or you can go directly to the website, which is mammalweb.org/NHMP. So the other thing that's involved with this is when the images are uploaded to MammalWeb, they go through AI classifiers. So we have two AI, artificial intelligence tools, that actually view the images first. And the reason for that is so that they filter out the sequences that contain blank images. So where the camera has been triggered by waving grass, lights in the distance, things like that. So it filters out those. It also removes any images of people, because obviously we don't want images of people to be shown to the public. So it goes through two AI tools to eliminate those. They are then presented to the public. So if you click on NHMP, it'll take you to this page. And at this stage, you can click on classify this project, and that'll present to you sequences from the whole national project. So we've got 40 sites that were monitored. 13 were monitored in 2023, and then all 40 were monitored in 2024. Some of which were repeat monitored. So we're building up that repeat data. So in this one, you can choose to classify images from any of the sites, and they will be presented to you randomly. Just a brief word about the graphs here. You'll see this shows how many sequences have been uploaded. So this is across the whole national project. So yeah, I mentioned actually it looks like it's above 1.5 million sequences now. And then down here you can see what are the most classified animals. Livestock is the most classified, so that livestock appear in the majority. Well, yeah, livestock is the most classified species group. Hedgehogs, they are in the top 10, but that figure doesn't encapsulate the top 10 there. So, but that does show, that does make a point that you're not guaranteed to see hedgehogs. So do bear that in mind, that if you see a shape in an image, it's not necessarily a hedgehog. So at this point, you can choose to classify this project, or you can scroll down and you'll find a list of lots of other projects. Now we are in the process of streamlining these, so it makes a bit more sense. It isn't quite so daunting with lots of different projects. So we've got sites in Dorset, as I mentioned, and we've also got this Wiltshire hub here. So apologies, the Dorset one was further up the list, so I couldn't take a photo of that. But if, for example, you want to go to the Wiltshire hub, you click on the image there, and then it'll take you specifically to the Wiltshire images. So again, we've got graphs for the Wiltshire hub. So this encapsulates 5 different sites, each of which have 30 cameras. Again, livestock is the most classified species or group, closely followed by cat. So that's because in Wiltshire we did have a lot of gardens within some of the sites, which again is key because a lot of hedgehogs are there. So that explains that. So at this point, you can choose to classify this project by clicking the button. Now, depending on if you're already logged in, it'll take you straight to the sequence. If not, it'll take you to a login page. If you have a MammalWeb account, you just log in. If you don't, you'll see underneath the kind of login bit, it says, don't have an account. You click on that, and then you just enter your name, give it a username and a password, and your email address. And that's purely so that we can, so MammalWeb can identify how many sequences you've done, which I'll come to later. So it's purely for sort of leaderboard reasons. If you'd like to hear from MammalWeb, there's a box to tick and you'll get mailing lists. Similarly, once you've done a few sequences for the NHMP, you'll be asked if you want to subscribe to the NHMP specific mailing list. But other than that, and if you don't tick those, you won't hear from anyone, and your details, of course, will never be shared with anyone. So once you've logged in, you are presented with sequences. So these ones are from Wiltshire. This one, now, of course, you won't necessarily get a hedgehog first time round. This one is, hopefully you can see there is a hedgehog there. But this is what it looks like. So it'll say, what do you see in the sequence? And you'll see here there are 4, well, there are some green circles. And this indicates that in this sequence were 4 images. At this point, I can't click to next sequence because I have to look at all the images in the sequence. So to do that, you just click on the right arrow and you can see him trundling through. So you then, there is a hedgehog in that sequence, so you click on hedgehog over here. When you do that, you will be presented with this screen, which gives you some information about the species. You can then, if there are more than one, you can specify how many. And with other species, you can say if it's male, female, young or old, or adult, I should say. But for hedgehogs, mostly it'll be unknown. And then you can, if you're not sure, if you can just see a shape in the back, then you can of course click not certain. Any notes if you have them, and then finally save changes. So you'll see there that there is now a classification, a tag associated with that image. You'll also see down here we've got the thumbs up button, the like button. If you come across an image that you think is really nice, it'll be useful for us for promotion, for social media, that sort of thing. Please do like it, and the team will see it. Again, it saves us from trawling through thousands and thousands of images to find some nice ones. There is also a flag button. If you come across an image which you think is inappropriate for some reason, shouldn't be, you don't think it should be viewable to others in future, just click the flag button and that reports it to the team. And again, it's taken out of circulation. On that point, down here, we've got human. So as I say, we do have these AI tools. Hopefully you shouldn't see any humans. Any that do slip through are likely to be in the background, not recognizable individuals. So if you do see a human, just click human, and again, that will be removed from circulation. What's the other thing to say? So in the list here, you've got, these are your common mammals that you're likely to see. And then down here, we've got common birds that you may see as well. And that includes, up here, we've got, I think it's in the next page, sorry, if you go to, if you click on mammals, you get a much wider list of other species. And similarly, if you click on birds, you get less common bird species. And in there is a deer species category, because deer are notoriously difficult to identify from camera trap images, particularly at this height where you may just get a leg. So there is a deer species category. Of course, if you can identify them, great. Please do say which species it is. And again, here you've got small rodent, vole, unidentified bird, for example. You can, of course, put don't know if there's something that you can't find. So actually, things like moths, they're not on there, but occasionally you do see moths and butterflies, so you could put other. Nothing, there are a few sequences still where there are blanks. That's partly to test the AI and to keep you on your toes. So if there are sequences that have nothing in them, that may well be true. Don't go kind of thinking there must be something in all of the sequences. The other thing to say is that you are tagging here at the sequence level. So you don't need to, so for example, here we had 2 images with hedgehogs in. You don't need to tag each image as a hedgehog. That tag there of hedgehog applies to the whole sequence. If there is another species in there, you can obviously tag another species as well. So that is that. I'm just going to play this quick video to show some examples of other things that might be useful. So here is a location button. So this isn't for the Wessex site, but this just shows you it shows you the rough location. So if you've got, say, a squirrel and you don't know if it's grey or red, you can see it there. The other thing I wanted to quickly show you is this invert button. It's basically it's useful, very useful for night images. So you'll see there that this sort of inverted the colours of the image, and it actually makes the animals stand out a bit more. Mostly in nighttime images, it's not so good for daytime images. But if you look here, you'll see that actually, you know, you can only see a couple, and then you can see those are much more vivid. So that's worth looking at, that invert function. So then we've put in livestock, we've put in 3 animals, and then we'll just go through a few more. So this isn't in the Wessex area, I'm afraid, but hedgehog, you click on it, you save the changes, etc. So if we just go on to the next section. So the other thing that you might want to do is look at your dashboard. So if you go in the top menu, there's a contribute menu. And if you go onto my dashboard, this just gives you insight into your progress. So we've got the total number of sequences in the system and classified, so that's across all projects. And then you've got the number that you've personally classified and where you are within the sort of leaderboard of spotters. So 2 kind of warnings with spotting. So spotting is the process of classifying. One is that it's quite addictive because you have to press next sequence to kind of save your tag. And so by doing that, you then see the next sequence. So I've had numerous emails where people have said they've whiled away 3 hours without noticing. So there's a warning there. Also, it can be quite competitive. We used to have a leaderboard at work, and yeah, it would get quite competitive with you know, what position you were on the leaderboard and how many sequences you've done. But hopefully you can see it's good fun. There's also their a quiz as well. Those are sort of quiz results. So if you go up to the learn menu at the top there, you can do various different quizzes. So within the Wessex region, we've got 7 sites, 5 in Wiltshire, 2 in Dorset, and that equates to about 260,000 sequences. Now, 92% of those have been classified by over 2,000 spotters. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that in the graph, it showed that a far lower proportion of sequences have been classified. That's because that encapsulates all the sequences that have been uploaded, the vast majority of which won't ever be shown to the public. They won't be available for classification because they're blank or they contain humans. So of the ones that have animals in them, 92% have been classified, which is great. And you might ask, well, why do we need you? Well, we need lots more classifications because we need to know, we need each sequence to be classified several times, because then we can look at the consensus between spotters to help us verify the classifications to say if they're correct or not. So at the moment, if we've got a hedgehog, or a sequence has been classified as a hedgehog, then we can assume it's hedgehog. However, we do find that hedgehogs sometimes are confused with other things. So we want a consensus. We want several people to agree on what's in that sequence. Hopefully hedgehogs shouldn't be too confusing, but it's other things like hares versus rabbit, that sort of thing. So, and different deer species. So we want each sequence to be classified several times. So please do have a look and do have a go at spotting. It is hopefully really enjoyable. So I'm just going to show you a few images from your from the sites in the Wessex area. So obviously we've got a hedgehog there. Another one. This one, so I mentioned that hedgehogs are tend to be solitary. This is what happens. So yeah, a little quite interesting interaction there. We have other animals. We have hare, and yeah, lots of hares, rabbits, that sort of thing. We also have this one. Anyone care to hazard a guess at what that is? Do say in the chat. We'll try and keep an eye. It's quite hard to see. Yeah, fab. Yeah, otter. Brilliant. So that's a really nice sighting of an otter at one of the, I think this was in Wiltshire, this one. Then we've got this. Any guesses on this one? Now this, it sort of represents, I'm quite surprised by how many birds of prey we've had on camera. Yeah, absolutely, tawny owl. So we've actually had all 5 species caught on camera across the country. So this is tawny owl, we've got barn owl. We've also had little long-eared and short-eared at other sites in the country. So, you know, considering the cameras are placed low to the ground, I wasn't expecting to get birds of prey. We've also had buzzards, sparrowhawks. Yes, I think that's it. So so yeah, so really nice things that can turn up. We've had bat species. I'm afraid I couldn't tell you what that was, but you know, that's quite a nice little sighting there. This one, anyone want to say what this is? Yeah, so this is polecat or ferret. It's pretty, I wouldn't like to say which was which, but there may be others that are more skilled in being able to identify the species. They do hybridize a lot, so yeah, but that's a nice record. And then finally, we've also had this one again. Anyone want to hazard a guess? Or a definite, yeah, exactly, yeah. So this is a stoat. You can tell it's a stoat because of that really nice clear black tail, showing that it's a stoat. A weasel wouldn't have that. And finally, this one was. So I'm originally a birder, so I was quite excited by this one. Excuse me. So this is a woodcock, which is a nice record. This was in Dorset. So I've sort of given you a few highlights there. I'm now going to do a quick quiz just to see yeah, what your ID skills are like. So those were all in the Wessex area. These are broader. So if you want to put in the chat and do anyone else, if anyone else wants to have a go, do shout. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is pheasant. And obviously quite a curious pheasant. We do find, as you'll see in this one, that the animals must be aware that the cameras are there, and we don't sort of shy away from that. But you know, from numerous camera trap studies that have been done in the past, we don't think there's any disturbance to them. But they must know that they're there, because they do kind of investigate them, and you'll see in nocturnal images that they do look at the cameras. But as far as we know, you know, any disturbance is minimal, and we do advise in all the protocols to make sure that when we put the cameras out, you know, we ask that people are, you know, mindful of disturbing the vegetation and that sort of thing. Yeah, so this is a grey squirrel here. We do have some sites. The reason I said earlier about location, we do have a site on the Isle of Wight, which of course is where you'd get red squirrel. So that would be, at the moment, that would be the only location in our NHMP sites where you might expect to see red squirrel. This one I particularly enjoy. Anyone want to hazard a guess what that is? Might have been a bit mean, but it just makes me laugh, this photo. I don't know why. It makes me giggle. Yeah. Alpaca, yeah, true. Well, actually, well, you've got me wondering now. As far as I know, I think that's a sheep. Sheep legs, knobbly knees. I don't know, it just makes me giggle. And now this one, what do we think this is? Yeah, great. Okay. Excellent. So I put that in as a slight trick because, not a trick exactly, but it's that sort of photo that is quite often identified as hedgehog, because in certain frames it looked quite spiky. But then if you look through the sequence, it becomes clear that it is a badger, or at least not a hedgehog. So yeah, so when animals are close to the camera, they can look spiky. When they're wet, they can look a bit spiky, so do watch out for that. This one, any thoughts on this one? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a jay. And then finally, this little fella. It's not a trick question, this one. Have we all gone shy? Okay, well, this is a hedgehog. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so hedgehog going away from the camera, but I like this one because you can see his feet or her feet. Yeah, I don't know, I quite like that one. So there are lots of really nice images on there. If you do have a go at spotting, yes, there may be, you may have lots of sheep or lots of cows, but there are also some really nice images as well, and also some really nice interactions. We've had, you know, little owl and rabbit kind of staring each other out, and hedgehog and fox. We've had unusual sightings, pine marten, for example, not in Wessex, but yeah, it's just really nice. You never know what you might find, so that's kind of why I enjoy doing it. So there is a video to take you through all the spotting. So that's the process. Sorry. So what's involved, how to do it. It takes you through basically what I've just said. You'll find that at our website, nhmp.co.uk. If you have any questions, please do email nhmp@ptes.org. And that's it. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
There were a couple of questions earlier about locations. So Emma asks, are there plans to establish a monitoring hub in the Avon region?
We are open to if anyone, I think we do have Avon Wildlife Trust on the call, so we are open to hubs, if anyone would like to volunteer as an organization, as a kind of hub, then certainly. We don't have Avon or anything in that area at the moment, but yeah, we'd certainly be up for it, so.
And there are a couple more questions about whether there were any hubs in Sussex or Kent or Somerset.
None in Somerset. We do have one in Sussex, which is run by the university. So down in sorry, my mind's gone blank. The university, anyway. So we do have one site down there, and we hope to have another one possibly this year, but if not, rolling into the kind of the big rollout. And where was the other one? Kent. Yes, we do have a hub in Kent. We have at the moment we have 3 sites, but again we're looking at possibly having 1 or 2 more this year. So that's mainly in sort of Medway Valley area and Tunbridge around there. But there are a couple of, again, there's possibly the University of Kent as well. So yeah, we do have some in Kent. So if you want to do any spotting, we have a Kent hub, and similarly a Sussex site as well. If you are interested in helping out with any deployments, then if you email me at NHMP at PTES.org, I can put you in touch with the relevant organisers, local organisers.
Amazing. There was another question about what are your views on the use of trained conservation detection dogs in helping establish presence or absence of hedgehogs?
Gosh, that's a good question. So funny enough, I was at a conference recently where there was a talk about using detection dogs, and I think they can be really beneficial. They can, this particular dog in mind was very well trained and caused, I think causes minimal disturbance compared to other, more traditional survey methods. So yeah, I think that's a really exciting avenue that needs more investigation.
Amazing. There's a question here for some. It's a nice message. Note this is about the survey, but we have some kids here who are interested in building hedgehog den in the garden. Any quick tips?
Ooh, so hedgehogs, like, log piles and yeah, anything where they can kind of what's the word? Yeah, kind of bury themselves into a nice area. There are obviously sort of hedgehog houses and things like that. I would recommend going on the Hedgehog Street website. That's a really good source of information. And again, when I send around an email with various links and stuff, and the recording, I can send you links to Hedgehog Street and to my colleague Grace, who runs that, and she'll be able to help with any of those practical questions as well.
Brilliant. There's also a lot of offers to help, so it sounds like you might
fantastic.
get a few
Great.
more hubs.
Okay.
In terms of the recording for this, we have recorded it, so it will be available. We hope to collate all of these sessions from the Citizen Science Showcase together on a website. So keep an eye on our social media, the Natural History Consortium social media, and our website, and hopefully that will be up and running at some point. There's also a survey. I can see lots of people are leaving. So I'm going to post the survey in the chat. We'd really appreciate your feedback about this session. So I'm posting that for you now. Are there any other questions at all? I think that might be all of them. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's been really, really interesting to learn about this project. I'm sure you'll get loads of new helpers with it. Yeah, there's loads more events happening this week, so do check them out on the Natural History Consortium website. But yeah, thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.